please tap like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now get comfortable and relax. My name is Luke Johnson. I'm 42 years old and I haven't been back to Lake Powell in 20 years. Not since my father drowned here in 2005. I'm writing this down because I need to get it straight in my head before I talk to anyone about what happened. The police will want a statement, my sister Jennifer will want answers. I don't have good ones for either of them. I arrived at Wahweap RV Park on a Thursday afternoon in late September. The place was mostly empty. Peak season had ended after Labor Day. I'd reserved a spot for 2 weeks, though I wasn't sure I'd last that long. My therapist, Dr. Chen, thought this was a terrible idea. Confronting trauma is good, she'd said during our last session. But you need to do it when you're ready, not when you're spiraling. I was spiraling. I'd been spiraling since my divorce finalized in March, since I'd lost my job at the architecture firm in June, since I'd started dreaming about my father every single night in August, always the same dream. Him calling my name from dark water, his voice echoing off canyon walls. The RV I'd rented was a 30-foot Winnebago, way too big for just me. The rental place in Page had tried to talk me into something smaller, but I'd insisted. I needed space. I needed to feel like I could move around without the walls closing in. I set up in spot 47, which had a partial view of the lake through a gap in the rocky terrain. The ranger who checked me in was maybe 60, weathered face, name tag that read, Bill. He barely looked at my reservation printout. You picked a good time to come, he said. Place clears out after September, gets quiet. That's what I'm looking for. How long you staying? 2 weeks maybe, depends. He handed me a park map and a sheet about water safety. Lake's down about 40 feet from normal levels. Drought. You'll see a lot of exposed rock and old debris. People find all kinds of things when the water's this low. Crashed boats, sunken docks. Last month somebody found a car from the 80s. I took the papers without really looking at them. Thanks. You here alone? Yeah. He studied me for a moment and I had the uncomfortable feeling he was trying to place me, but he just nodded and waved me through. I spent the rest of that afternoon setting up and trying not to think too hard about why I was really here. I told Jennifer I needed to clear my head, get some perspective. I told Dr. Chen I was ready to face what happened. I told myself I just needed to see the place again, to prove to myself it was just a lake, just water, just geology and chemistry and nothing more. But I'd been hearing his voice for 3 months, not in dreams, in my apartment in Denver, in my car, in the grocery store. Always the same. Luke. Come here, Luke. And it was his voice. I knew my father's voice. That first night I made dinner in the RV's tiny kitchen, just pasta and jarred sauce, and ate it while watching the sun set over the lake. The water turned copper, then deep red, then purple as the light faded. I'd forgotten how dramatic sunsets were out here, how the desert landscape seemed to amplify every color. I also forgot how complete the darkness was once the sun went down. The RV park had minimal lighting, just a few solar-powered path lights near the bathrooms and main office. My spot was far enough from those that when I turned off the RV's interior lights, the darkness was almost total. I could see stars like I hadn't seen in years living in Denver. The Milky Way was a bright smear across the sky. I sat outside in my camp chair with a beer, listening to the night sounds. Wind moving through the canyon, the distant hum of someone's generator, the faint slap of water against the shore. And then, around 10 o'clock, I heard it. Luke. Just that. Just my name. Coming from the direction of the lake. I stood up fast enough that my chair tipped over. My heart was doing that thing it had been doing a lot lately, that rapid pounding that felt like it might crack my ribs. I turned on my phone's flashlight and pointed it toward the water, but the beam didn't reach far enough to show me anything except rocks and scrub brush. Hello? My voice came out rough. Nothing, just wind. I went inside the RV and locked the door, which was stupid because it was an RV door, not exactly a security barrier. I sat on the bed in the back and focused on my breathing like Dr. Chen had taught me. 4 counts in, Hold for 4. 4 counts out. After about 20 minutes, my hands stopped shaking. It was the wind, I told myself, or another camper. Or my own brain playing tricks on me, because that's what brains do when you're sleep-deprived and anxious and deliberately putting yourself in a place loaded with trauma. I didn't sleep well. I kept jerking awake, convinced I'd heard something. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up and sat at the small dinette table with my laptop, trying to distract myself with work emails I no longer had. My inbox was mostly spam now. When dawn finally came, I felt hollowed out and fragile, but also faintly ridiculous. It was just wind, just my imagination, just the stress of being back here. I decided to spend the day exploring, to get reacquainted with the area. My father and I had come here when I was 12, just the two of us. Mom had stayed home with Jennifer, who was 6 and got carsick on long drives. Dad wanted to take me fishing, wanted us to have guy time. We'd stayed at this same RV park, though I didn't remember the exact spot. I drove into Page for breakfast and supplies. The town had grown since I was last here. More chain restaurants, a bigger Walmart. More hotels catering to the tourists who came for Antelope Canyon and Horseshoe Bend. But it still had that small desert town feel, everything covered in a fine layer of red dust. In the Walmart parking lot, I sat in my rental car and pulled up the news articles about my father's death. I'd read them 100 times, but I pulled them up again. July 23, 2005. Denver man drowns in Lake Powell boating accident. The details were sparse. He'd been alone in a rented fishing boat. The boat was found drifting near Padre Bay, empty, engines still running. His body was recovered 3 days later, about 2 miles from where the boat was found. The autopsy said drowning blood alcohol level was ARO9, just over the legal limit. No signs of trauma. Accident. I was 22 when it happened, just graduated from college. Jennifer had called me at 6 a.m. hysterical. I'd flown to Utah, identified the body, handled all the logistics while Mom sat in the hotel room unable to speak. It was the only time I'd ever seen her completely shut down. We never talked about why he'd been here alone. He'd told Mom it was a business trip. He worked in medical equipment sales, traveled a lot. But there was no business conference, no client meetings. He'd just driven to Utah, rented an RV and a boat, and apparently gotten drunk and fell overboard. The only thing that never made sense to me was that my father didn't drink much. A beer with dinner sometimes, wine at holidays. I'd never seen him drunk. That ARO9 BAC felt wrong, but not wrong enough that anyone investigated further. I bought groceries and drove back to the park, taking the long way around the lake. The water level was shockingly low. I could see the famous bathtub ring on the canyon walls, that white mineral deposit line showing where the water line used to be. Below it, the rock was dark red, exposed for the first time in decades. Back at my spot, I saw I had neighbors now. A large travel trailer had pulled into spot 45, 2 sites down from mine. As I parked, a woman climbed out of the trailer, maybe late 30s, dark hair and a ponytail. "Hey there," she called, waving. "Looks like we're camping buddies." I waved back but didn't walk over. I wasn't here to socialize. She didn't seem bothered by my lack of enthusiasm. "I'm Sarah. That's my husband Mark inside, and our daughter Emma is around here somewhere, probably down by the water." "Luke," I said, because it seemed rude not to. "First time here?" "No. Used to come here as a kid." "It's beautiful, isn't it? Even with the water so low. We're from Phoenix. We try to come up a few times a year. Emma loves it." I nodded and started unloading my groceries, hoping she'd take the hint. "If you need anything, just holler," she said. "Mark's pretty handy if you have any RV trouble." "Thanks." I went inside and put away the food, trying to ignore the guilty feeling that I'd been rude. But I wasn't here to make friends. I was here to... What? Hear my dead father's voice again. Prove I was losing my mind? That afternoon, I hiked down to the water. The shoreline was a maze of exposed debris. Old tires, pieces of dock, rusted metal I couldn't identify. I found what looked like part of a boat hull, mostly buried in dried mud. The drought had turned the lake into an archaeological site. revealing all the things people had lost or dumped over the years. I stood at the water's edge and stared out at the expanse of it. The main channel of the lake stretched for miles, surrounded by red rock cliffs and side canyons. It looked the same as it had 20 years ago, the same as it probably had when my father drowned. "Dad?" I said it quietly, feeling stupid. "Are you out there?" The water lapped against the rocks. A boat passed in the distance, its engine a faint buzzing sound. Nothing. I sat down on a boulder and watched the light change as afternoon turned to evening. I'd brought my phone to take pictures, but I didn't take any. I just sat there, waiting for something, though I didn't know what. "Mister?" I turned and saw a girl standing about 15 feet away. She was maybe 10 or 11, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a cartoon character I didn't recognize. This must be Emma, Sarah's daughter. "Sorry," I said. "Didn't hear you come up." "Are you okay? You were just sitting there for a really long time." "I'm fine, just thinking." She walked closer, not shy at all. "My mom says you're camping near us." "Yeah." "Are you here by yourself?" "I am." "That's lonely." I almost laughed. Maybe a little. "My dad says people who camp alone are either running away from something or looking for something." She said it matter-of-factly, like she was relaying information about the weather. "Your dad sounds like a philosopher. He's an accountant." She picked up a smooth stone and tossed it into the water. "Did someone die here? Is that why you came back?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Why would you ask that?" She shrugged. "I don't know. You just seem sad. And people come back to places where people died, to feel close to them, I guess." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Someone did die here, a long time ago. I'm sorry." She picked up another stone. "Do you hear them sometimes?" My skin went cold. "What?" "The people who died. Do you hear them?" "Why are you asking me that?" She looked at me with those direct, unsettling eyes that kids have when they don't understand what should and shouldn't be said. "Because I do. I hear people in the water. At night, mostly. They call out names. I told my parents, but they said it's just other campers or birds or something." Before I could respond, Sarah's voice called from up the slope. "Emma, dinner." "I have to go," Emma said. She started walking away, then turned back. "Hey, mister, if you hear them calling, don't answer. My grandma told me that once. Never answer voices from the water." Then she was gone, scrambling up the rocky slope toward the RV park. I sat there as the sun dropped below the canyon rim and shadows filled the basin. My hands were shaking again. That night, I heard it again. I was lying in bed reading on my phone, some article I'd already read 3 times without absorbing anything, when the voice came through the RV's thin walls. Luke, come here." I got up and went to the window. The park was dark, just those few scattered solar lights making dim pools of yellow on the paths. I could see Sarah and Mark's trailer, light glowing from their windows. I couldn't see anything else. My phone said it was 11:47 p.m. I pulled on shoes and a jacket and went outside. The temperature had dropped, the desert night air cold enough to see my breath. I turned on my flashlight and walked toward the lake. "Dad?" I called. My voice sounded too loud in the stillness. "Luke." It was closer now, definitely coming from the water. I walked faster, stumbling over rocks I couldn't see properly even with the flashlight. My breath was coming in short gasps, and I couldn't tell if it was from exertion or panic. I reached the shoreline and swept my flashlight across the water. Nothing, just darkness and the faint reflection of stars on the surface. "Where are you?" I was shouting now. "Dad!" Silence. Then, from right in front of me, maybe 20 feet out, "Come here, son." I stepped into the water before I realized what I was doing. It was shockingly cold, soaking through my shoes. I stopped when I was knee-deep, the beam of my flashlight dancing across the black surface. Luke. It was his voice. I knew it was his voice. The same tone he'd used when he wanted to show me something interesting or when he was proud of something I'd done. That warm, patient voice I hadn't heard in 20 years. I can't, I said. I was crying now, tears hot on my face in the cold air. I can't come out there. You're not real. I need you to understand. Understand what? No response, just the sound of water lapping against my legs. I stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Eventually, I backed out of the water and sat on the rocks, soaking wet and shivering. I watched the lake until my phone said 2:14 a.m., but I didn't hear the voice again. When I finally trudged back to the RV, I saw Mark standing outside his trailer, smoking a cigarette. "You okay?" he called. "Fine. Couldn't sleep. Heard you yelling. Thought maybe you saw a snake or something." "No, no snake. I gestured vaguely. "Night hike." He took a drag on his cigarette. "Weird place at night. Sound carries funny off the water. You can hear people talking from miles away sometimes. Makes it seem like they're right next to you." "Yeah," I said. "That must be it." I went inside and stripped off my wet clothes. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I drove into Page and went to the library. I don't know what I was looking for exactly. Information about my father's death, maybe. Or something about the lake's history. The library was small, just a few rows of books and some computers. The librarian was a Navajo woman, maybe 50, who barely looked up when I came in. I used one of the computers to search for drownings at Lake Powell. There were dozens over the years. The lake was huge, nearly 2,000 miles of shoreline, and people were stupid around water. They drove boats drunk, swam in areas with hidden currents, cliff jumped without checking depth. Every summer, someone died. I found my father's death certificate in an online database. Cause of death: asphyxiation due to drowning. Manner of death: accident. Nothing I hadn't already known. On impulse, I searched for other deaths around the same date, July 2005. There were 2 others that month. A teenager who'd been swimming near Waweep and didn't come up. A woman in her 50s whose kayak had capsized near Rainbow Bridge. Both ruled accidental drownings. I sat back and rubbed my eyes. What was I even looking for? Evidence that my father's death was something other than a tragic accident? That wouldn't change anything. He was still gone. "You researching something specific?" The librarian had appeared next to me, quiet as a ghost. I nearly jumped out of my chair. "Sorry," she said. "Didn't mean to startle you, just wondering if you need help finding something." "No, I'm just looking into some local history." She glanced at the screen, at the articles about drownings. "Family research?" "My father drowned here, 20 years ago." Her expression softened. "I'm sorry. That's a hard thing." "Yeah." She hesitated, then said, "This lake has taken a lot of people. We, the Navajo people, we don't go in the water here. It's not our place. The government flooded these canyons to make the reservoir, covered a lot of sacred sites. My grandmother used to say the water here doesn't forget. It holds on to things." "What kind of things?" "Everything that went under. Buildings, artifacts, burial sites, and the people who've died in it. She said sometimes the water gives them back, but not the way they went in. Changed." I stared at her. That's just a story, right?" "Maybe. Maybe not. You believe what makes sense to you." She turned to leave, then paused. "If you're hearing things, don't go toward them. Water spirits lie." She walked away before I could ask what she meant. I drove back to the RV park in a daze. The rational part of my brain was screaming that this was all nonsense, cultural superstition mixed with my own grief and stress. Of course I was hearing my father's voice. I was having some kind of breakdown. I needed to go home, call Dr. Chen, maybe check myself into an inpatient facility for a few days. But I didn't leave. I went back to the RV, made lunch I didn't eat, and sat outside watching the lake. Around 4 in the afternoon, Emma appeared at my campsite. She was wearing a different t-shirt but the same direct expression. "Hi," she said. "Hi, Emma. Did you hear them again last night?" I didn't see any point in lying. Yeah, I did. She nodded like this confirmed something. It's getting worse, isn't it? Every night, there's more voices. How do you know that? Because that's what happened to Mr. Peterson. Who's Mr. Peterson? He was camping here last month when we visited. He was alone, like you. He said he came here because his wife died in the lake 5 years ago. He was really nice. He let me help him feed the fish off the dock. Okay. He kept going down to the water at night. My dad told him to be careful, that it was dangerous to walk around in the dark. But Mr. Peterson said he had to. He said his wife was calling him. My stomach clenched. What happened to him? He disappeared on our last night here. Rangers looked for him for 3 days. They found his campsite all torn up. Tent ripped, stuff scattered everywhere. But no Mr. Peterson. Maybe he just left. She shook her head. His truck was still here, and my mom saw him go into the water that night. She was up late, couldn't sleep, and she saw him walk down to the shore and just keep walking, into the water. She yelled for my dad, but by the time they got down there, Mr. Peterson was gone. Did they find his body? No, and that's the weird part. My mom says there's no way he could have drowned that close to shore. The water's not deep there, but he just disappeared. Emma! Sarah's voice again, calling from their trailer. Leave the man alone. I have to go, Emma said. She started to leave, then turned back one more time. My grandma said something else about the water here. She said when it calls you by name, that means it's already got a piece of you, and it won't stop until it has the rest. She ran off before I could respond. I sat there as the light failed, thinking about Mr. Peterson walking into the water, thinking about my father, thinking about whether I was having auditory hallucinations or if something in Lake Powell really was calling to me. The rational explanation was obvious. I was unwell. The stress of my divorce, the job loss, the unresolved grief over my father, all of it had caught up to me, and my brain was breaking under the weight. The voices were a symptom. The smart thing would be to pack up right now, drive back to Denver and get help. But I didn't move. I sat there and watched darkness swallow the canyon. That night I tried to stay awake. I made coffee, turned on all the lights in the RV, played music on my phone. I was determined not to hear the voice again, as if staying awake would somehow prevent it. It didn't work. At 1:23 a.m., I noted the time. I heard it. Louder than before, more insistent. Luke, it's time. Come here. I turned off the music. The voice continued, a steady chant from outside. Luke, come to the water. It's time. I went to the door and looked out the window. I could see someone standing at the edge of my campsite, silhouetted against the faint starlight. A man's figure, average height, shoulders slightly stooped. My father had stood like that. Bad posture from years hunched over a desk. I opened the door. Dad? The figure didn't move, didn't turn around, just stood there, facing away from me toward the lake. Dad, is that you? Come here, Luke. I stepped outside. The figure started walking toward the lake, slow and steady. I followed. I knew I shouldn't. Every rational thought in my head was screaming at me to go back inside, lock the door, call for help. But my legs kept moving, carrying me after that familiar silhouette. We went down the rocky slope to the shoreline. The figure stopped at the water's edge. I stopped about 10 feet behind him. Dad? The figure turned around. It wasn't my father. It was Mark, Sarah's husband. He was soaking wet, water dripping from his clothes and hair. His eyes were open but vacant, staring at nothing. Mark? I said. What are you doing down here? He didn't respond. He just stood there, water pooling around his feet. Then he smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. His mouth stretched too wide, showing too many teeth. She's calling you, he said. But it wasn't his voice. It was layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. She wants you to come home. Who? Who's calling me? The water, the lake, all of us who went under. We're waiting for you, Luke. I took a step back. You're not Mark. I am now. She gave him back to show you, to help you understand. When you go under, you come back different, better, complete. Where's the real Mark? There is no real. There's only what the water makes. Mark went in. Mark came out, same as your father did. My blood went cold. My father drowned. His body washed up 3 days later. Did it? Are you sure? I stared at him. At it. At whatever was wearing Mark's body like a suit. The body they gave you, it continued. Was it really him? Did you look close? Or did you just accept what they told you because it was easier than asking questions? I had looked. I'd identified the body. I'd seen my father's face, bloated and gray and wrong, but his face nonetheless. His wedding ring was still on his finger, the birthmark on his shoulder. It was him, wasn't it? Your father called you here, the Mark thing said. He wants you to understand. He wants you to join him. The water remembers everything, Luke. Everyone. And it wants us all back. It took a step toward me. Then another. I ran. I scrambled up the slope, slipping on loose rocks, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind me, I could hear splashing, footsteps in the shallow water following me. I made it to my RV and threw myself inside, slamming the door and locking it. I backed away from the windows, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. I waited for the Mark thing to appear outside to try to get in, but minutes passed, then an hour, and nothing happened. The park remained silent. Around 3 a.m., I heard a scream. It came from Sarah and Mark's trailer, a long, terrified scream that cut off abruptly. I grabbed my phone and called 911. The dispatcher said rangers were on their way, asked if I could see what was happening. I looked out the window toward their trailer, but it was dark. All the lights were off. I don't see anything, I told the dispatcher, but someone screamed. Stay inside your vehicle, sir. Rangers will be there in approximately 15 minutes. I stayed on the line with her, both of us silent, waiting. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and too fast. At 3:47 a.m., headlights swept across the park as a ranger's truck pulled in. I saw 2 rangers get out, flashlights in hand, and approach the trailer. They knocked, waited, knocked again. One of the rangers tried the door. It opened. They went inside. I watched from my window, phone still pressed to my ear, as the dispatcher asked me if I could see anything. They went inside, I said. Do you see the rangers? No, they're still in there. 5 minutes passed, 10. The rangers didn't come out. Ma'am, I said to the dispatcher, something's wrong, they've been in there too long. I'm going to send additional units, she said. Sir, please remain inside your vehicle. But I couldn't just sit there. I ended the call and went outside. The trailer door was still open, a rectangle of darkness. I approached slowly, my phone flashlight beam shaking. Hello? I called. Rangers? No response. I reached the trailer steps and looked inside. The beam of my flashlight showed an empty living area. A small kitchen. No people. No signs of struggle. Nothing. Then I saw the water. It was seeping up through the floor. Dark water spreading across the linoleum. Even as I watched, more came up, bubbling between the seams in the flooring. I backed away, but the water followed me. It was coming up through the ground itself, pooling around the trailer's wheels, spreading across the campsite. I turned and ran back to my RV. The water was there too, rising around the tires. I climbed inside and looked out the window at the impossible sight of Lake Powell flooding the RV park, 30 feet above the shoreline. But it wasn't really flooding. When I looked carefully, the water was only a few inches deep. It wasn't rising rapidly like a flood. It was just there, present, where it shouldn't be. I heard engines, more rangers arriving, lights flashing. I watched as they pulled up to the park entrance, got out of their trucks and stopped. They were looking at something I couldn't see from my angle. One ranger backed up quickly, hand on his weapon. Another got on his radio, talking urgently. Then I saw what they were seeing. People were walking up from the lake. Not just one or two, dozens. They emerged from the water in a silent procession, dripping wet, their movements synchronized and wrong. They walked like puppets, jerky and unnatural. Mark was among them. I recognized his shape even at this distance. And next to him, Sarah. And Emma. And next to Emma, a man I'd only seen in photographs from the 80s and 90s before he'd put on middle-aged weight. But I recognized him instantly. My father. He looked exactly as he had the last time I'd seen him alive, the morning he'd left for this trip. Blue polo shirt, khaki shorts, his hair still more brown than gray. 37 years old, frozen in time. The procession of water people stood at the edge of the park, not approaching the rangers, just standing there, waiting. One of the rangers called out, asking them to identify themselves. None of them responded. My father turned and looked directly at my RV, at me watching from the window. He smiled, the same too wide smile I'd seen on Mark. Then, as a group, they all turned and walked back into the lake. They waded in until the water reached their chests, then their necks, then their heads disappeared beneath the surface. Within seconds, they were all gone. The rangers stood frozen, radios crackling with confused chatter. I heard sirens in the distance, more help coming. I sat in my RV, staring at the dark water that still pooled around the tires, and understood. The body they'd recovered 20 years ago hadn't been my father. Not really. The lake had kept him, or something in the lake had kept him, and sent back. Something else. Something wearing his face, his wedding ring, his birthmark. But not him. And now he was still here, still in the water, still waiting. The sun came up. The water around my RV receded, leaving just damp ground. Rangers swarmed the park, questioning me and the few other campers who'd remained. I told them what I'd seen, or a version of it. People walking from the lake, Mark and Sarah and Emma among them, then disappearing back into the water. They searched for 3 days. They found Sarah and Mark's trailer empty, personal belongings still inside, phones and wallets on the table. They dragged portions of the lake near the shore. They brought in divers. They didn't find bodies. They didn't find anything. On the 4th day, they asked me to leave. The park was being closed temporarily while they investigated. I packed up the RV and drove back to the rental place in Page, turned in the keys and caught a flight back to Denver. But I didn't really leave, because every night, I still hear it, the voice calling from the water. Not just at night now, sometimes during the day, a whisper under the sound of traffic or conversation. Luke, it's time. Come home. I've been seeing Dr. Chen twice a week. She's increased my medications. She says I had a psychotic break triggered by stress and returning to the site of my father's death. She says the things I saw weren't real. Mass hysteria, hallucinations brought on by sleep deprivation and grief. Maybe she's right. But yesterday I got a call from Jennifer. She'd been going through some of Mom's things. Mom died last year, and we'd been slowly sorting through decades of accumulated life. Jennifer found something in a box of Dad's personal effects that the police had returned after his death. A journal. Dad's journal, from that trip to Lake Powell. Jennifer read me the last entry, dated July 22, 2005, the day before he drowned. I can hear her now. The voice from the canyon when I was 17. The summer my friends and I camped at Padre Bay, and Thomas went swimming and didn't come back. We said he drowned, but I knew. I heard her calling him. I saw him walk into the water, and I saw him come back out an hour later. But it wasn't Thomas anymore. He smiled too much. He knew things he shouldn't have known. I tried to forget. I stayed away for 22 years, built a life, had a family. But she never forgot me. She's been calling me for months in my dreams, in the shower, in the rain, calling me back. I'm here now, at the place where Thomas went in. I'm going to give her what she wants. I'm going to walk into the water tonight and let her take me. Maybe when I come back out, I'll finally understand. Maybe I'll finally be free of this voice. I'm sorry, Margaret. I'm sorry, Luke and Jennifer. I can't explain this to you. You'd think I was crazy. Maybe I am. But I have to do this. The water wants what it wants. If I don't come back, or if I come back different, wrong, please know that I loved you. The real me loved you. Whatever comes after isn't me. It's just wearing my face. Don't come looking for me. Don't come back to this place. The water remembers everything, and once it knows your name, it never lets go. Jennifer was crying when she finished reading. She asked me if I understood what it meant. If Dad had been planning to kill himself. I couldn't tell her the truth. That our father had walked into Lake Powell knowing exactly what would happen. That something had called him back to the place where his friend Thomas had drowned 22 years earlier. That he'd let it take him, hoping it would end the voice in his head. And that it hadn't been Dad who came back. It had been something else. Something that had attended his own funeral, hugged his children, slept next to his wife, until the medical examiner in the funeral home took the body away. I didn't tell her that I'd returned to the same place for the same reason, that I'd heard the same voice, that I'd seen him, or something wearing him, walk out of the lake with all the others who'd answered the call. I just told her I was sorry, that I missed him too. That we'd probably never understand what he was thinking in those final days. She seemed satisfied with that answer. She said we should scatter his ashes. We'd kept them all these years, unable to decide what to do with them, somewhere meaningful, maybe in the mountains he loved. I agreed, but I know I'll never touch those ashes, because I don't think they're his ashes. I think whatever the lake sent back, whatever they cremated, was something else entirely. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know, in case I answer the call, in case one night I get in my car and drive back to Lake Powell and walk into the water. The voice is getting louder, more insistent. Every day it's harder to resist. Luke, come home. It's time. We're waiting for you. Sometimes I hear other voices now too. Thomas, whoever he was, Mr. Peterson, Mark and Sarah and Emma, all of them calling me, all of them saying the same thing. The water remembers. Dr. Chen says it's not real, that it's a manifestation of guilt and grief and unresolved trauma, that with time and treatment the voices will fade. But last night, I looked in my bathroom mirror and saw something that wasn't quite right. My reflection was smiling when I wasn't, blinking a half-second too late. And this morning, I woke up with damp sheets, not from sweat. They smelled like lake water. I think I know what's going to happen. I think my father tried to warn me and I didn't listen. I came back to Lake Powell even after he'd written in his journal not to. The water learned my name. And once the water knows your name, it never lets go. If you're reading this and you have any connection to Lake Powell, if you lost someone there, if you've heard voices from the water, if you felt called to return, don't go, don't answer. Don't think you can confront it or understand it or get closure. The water doesn't give closure, it just takes and takes until there's nothing left of you but something wearing your face. I'm going to try to resist. I'm going to keep seeing Dr. Chen, taking the medications, staying away from large bodies of water. I'm going to try to live a normal life in Denver, far from any lakes or reservoirs, but I know it won't matter. Because every night when I close my eyes, I'm there, standing on the shore of Lake Powell, watching figures rise from the dark water. And one of them is me, already smiling that too wide smile. Already waiting to welcome myself home, the water remembers, and I think it's already got me. That was 6 months ago. I'm updating this document now because I need to add what happened next. I lasted 3 months. 3 months of the voices growing louder, the smell of lake water pervading my apartment, my reflection moving wrong. 3 months of Dr. Chen telling me I was making progress while I felt pieces of myself slipping away. Then on a Tuesday night in December, I couldn't fight it anymore. I got in my car and drove. I don't remember making the decision. I just found myself on I-70 West heading toward Utah, the voice in my head saying, "Come home, come home, come home," in an endless loop. I drove through the night. By dawn, I was in Utah. By noon, I was parking at Waweep, The RV park was closed for the season. Yellow caution tape fluttered around the entrance, but no one was there to stop me. I walked into the park, past my old campsite, past where Sarah and Mark had stayed, down to the water. The lake was even lower now. The drought had continued, exposing more and more of the canyon floor. I could see debris scattered across what used to be the lake bottom. Boats, docks, tires, and stranger things. Shapes that might have been ancient dwellings or burial sites now revealed after decades underwater. I stood at the water's edge and waited. At first, nothing happened. Just me and the lake and the December wind cutting through my jacket. Then I saw him. My father walked out of the water. Not the young version I'd seen 6 months ago. This was the father I remembered from when I was 12. The father from our camping trip. He looked exactly as he had then. Sunburned nose, laugh lines, the REI baseball cap he always wore. "Hey, buddy," he said. The voice was perfect, warm and real and exactly right. "You're not him," I said. "Does it matter? I have all his memories. I remember teaching you to fish. I remember your first bicycle. I remember the night you were born, how scared I was to hold you. I remember it all, Luke. Every moment, every feeling. Doesn't that make me him?" I didn't have an answer. "The water takes what goes in," he continued, "but it gives back too. It preserves. Nothing is really lost here. Everyone who's drowned, everyone who's been taken by the lake, we're all still here. Still aware. Still ourselves, just more. Better. Complete." "Thomas," I said. "Did you really know Thomas?" "I did. He was my best friend. He walked into the lake in 1983 and I watched him come back out. I was 17 and terrified and I ran. But he was still Thomas. He just understood things he hadn't understood before. He saw the truth about what this place is." "What is it?" My father smiled. Not the too wide smile. Just his regular smile. The one I remembered. "A doorway. The canyons that were flooded when they made the reservoir, they were sacred to the Navajo, the Paiute, the Hopi, places where the world is thin, where other things can come through. When they filled the canyons with water, they didn't destroy that. They just changed it, made it accessible in a different way. So the things that come out of the water are still people, still who they were, just with something added, something that helps them understand. See more. Be more." I looked at him, at this thing wearing my father's face. "Why did you call me here?" "Because I love you. Because I want you to understand what happened to me, and because..." He paused, looked uncomfortable in a very human way. "Because it's lonely, Luke. Being in the water, having all this awareness and no one to share it with. I want my son back. Not as a memory, as something real. You want me to drown. I want you to join me, to understand, to be complete." He held out his hand. "Come on, buddy. Let me show you." I stood there, his hand extended toward me, and I understood what my father had understood in 2005, what Thomas had understood in 1983, what everyone who'd answered the lake's call had understood. It was easier to go in, easier to let go, easier to stop fighting the voice that never, ever stopped. I took a step toward him. Then I heard another voice, a child's voice. "Mr. Luke, don't." I turned and saw Emma running down the slope toward me, but not the Emma I'd seen 6 months ago. This Emma was clearly from before, from August when she and her parents had been camping here. She was wearing the same t-shirt she'd worn the first day I met her. She ran straight to me and grabbed my arm. "You can't go in. If you go in, you won't be you anymore." "Emma, where are your parents?" "They're in the water. They've been in the water since September. Every night they try to get me to come in too, but I won't. I keep running, I keep hiding, but I'm getting tired, Mr. Luke." I looked at her, really looked. She was thin, her clothes dirty and torn. Her face was scratched and bruised. She'd been living out here for months alone, running from her own parents. "Emma, we need to get you out of here." "You can't leave," my father said. His voice had changed. layered with that multi-voice quality I'd heard before. She can't leave. No one leaves once the water knows them. I looked back at him. He was still smiling, but it wasn't my father's smile anymore. It was the other smile, the wrong one. "Run," I said to Emma. We ran. I don't know how far we made it before I heard splashing behind us, multiple sets of footsteps in the shallow water. More people coming out of the lake, all of them with the same wrong smile, all of them moving in that jerky, puppet-like way. We scrambled up the rocky slope, Emma moving faster than me, her child's body more agile. We passed the RV park, kept going up into the rocks and scrub brush of the desert. The water people followed, not running, just walking, steady and relentless. They didn't need to run. They knew we'd eventually tire, knew there was nowhere to go in this vast, empty landscape. We ran until my lungs burned, until my legs threatened to give out. Emma kept pulling me forward, this strange, tough little girl who'd survived months alone in the desert. Finally, we stopped on a rocky outcrop, gasping for breath. Below us, I could see the lake spread out in the gathering dusk, and on the shore dozens of figures stood watching us, waiting. "What do we do?" Emma asked. I didn't have an answer. We couldn't run forever. We couldn't leave. My car keys were in my pocket, but my car was parked at a closed RV park surrounded by those things. We couldn't call for help. My phone had died hours ago. My grandma said something, Emma said suddenly, when she told me about the water spirits. She said they can only take you if you answer the call, if you go to them willingly. But if you don't answer, if you don't go into the water, eventually they forget about you. How long does that take? She didn't say. We sat there as night fell, watching the figures on the shore below. They didn't move, just stood there, dozens of them now, all looking up at us. "Maybe we just wait," I said. "Maybe they'll give up. Or maybe they won't." Emma's voice was small and scared and very young. "I've been waiting for months, Mr. Luke. They never forget." That was 2 months ago. I'm writing this on a laptop I found in an abandoned ranger station, charging it with a solar panel I scavenged. Emma and I are still here, still running, still hiding from the things that come out of Lake Powell. We've learned their patterns. They're more active at night, they call loudest during the darkest hours. They seem strongest near the water, but they never stop, never give up. Every night we hear voices we knew, Emma's parents, my father, Mr. Peterson, and the rangers who went into Sarah's trailer and never came out. All of them calling our names, promising completion, promising understanding. We don't answer. During the day, we scavenge. There are abandoned campsites scattered throughout this area. People who fled like we fled, leaving behind supplies. We've collected food, water, blankets, batteries. We've created hiding spots in the rocks where we can shelter during the worst nights. Emma talks about her parents sometimes, about how they'd take her camping, how much her dad loved fishing, how her mom made the best camp pancakes. She cries at night, quiet sobs she tries to muffle. She's 11 years old and she's living like a feral thing in the desert because her parents tried to drown her in Lake Powell. I tell her about my father, the real one, the one from before, how he taught me to tie knots, how he'd make terrible jokes, how he'd always believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I tell her about Thomas and about the journal that explained everything and about how my father had tried to warn me away and I'd come anyway. We tell each other these stories to remember that we were real people once, that our families were real, that this horror isn't all there is. But sometimes, more and more often, I'm not sure. Because yesterday, Emma said something that terrified me more than anything else that's happened. "Mr. Luke," she said, "when did we meet?" I can't remember anymore. I opened my mouth to answer. We met in September at the RV park, but the words didn't come. Because when I tried to access that memory, it was fuzzy, uncertain, like something viewed through murky water. Had we met in September? Or had it been August? Or earlier? I remember her warning me about the voices. I remember her telling me about Mr. Peterson. But when I try to put those memories in order, to create a coherent timeline, I can't. They're all jumbled, overlapping, contradicting each other. and my memories from before Lake Powell are fading too. I remember my divorce, but I can't picture my ex-wife's face. I remember my job, but I can't recall the name of the firm. I remember my sister Jennifer, but when I try to hear her voice in my mind, all I hear is the voice from the water saying, "Come home." This morning, I looked at my reflection in a still pool of water. I know I shouldn't look at water, but I couldn't help it. For just a moment, I didn't recognize the face looking back. It was too pale, too still. The eyes didn't quite track right. Then I blinked, and it was just me again. Gaunt and exhausted, but me. I think the water is forgetting us, like Emma's grandmother said. But I think we're forgetting too. Forgetting who we were, what we were running from, why any of this matters. Sometimes I think about giving up, walking down to the shore, taking my father's hand, letting the water take me. At least then I'd understand. At least then I'd be complete. At least then I wouldn't be so tired. Emma says we have to keep fighting. She says if we give up, then all those people, her parents, my father, all the others, they died for nothing. Or worse, they're trapped forever. Aware but changed, unable to save themselves. I think she's right. I think we have to keep running, keep hiding, keep refusing the call, but I don't know how much longer I can do it. The voice is so loud now. It's not just at night anymore, it's constant. A whisper under every thought, every breath. Luke, come home. Come home, come home. And I want to. God help me, I want to. But I'm writing this down first. I'm documenting everything while I still remember it clearly, while I still know what's real and what isn't. If you're reading this, if you somehow found this laptop in this abandoned ranger station, then you need to know. Stay away from Lake Powell. Don't go near the water. Don't listen if you hear voices calling your name. Don't try to understand what happened here or investigate the disappearances or solve the mystery. There is no solving it. There's only surviving it. And I'm not sure Emma and I are doing that anymore. I'm not sure we're still people or if we're slowly becoming something else. Something the water will eventually reclaim. The sun is setting now. Soon it will be dark. Soon the voices will get louder, and Emma and I will huddle in our hiding spot and try not to answer. But every night it gets harder. Every night the water calls a little louder. And every night I take one step closer to answering. The water remembers. And I think I'm finally starting to remember too. Remember what I really am. What I've always been. What I'll be once I stop running and go home. The water remembers. Come home, Luke. It's time. This document was found on a laptop in a ranger station at Lone Rock, Lake Powell, in March 2024. The laptop belonged to Luke Johnson, age 42, who was reported missing in December 2023 after his rental car was found at Wahweap. An extensive search was conducted, but no body was recovered. Also missing, Emma Martinez, age 11, who disappeared with her parents Mark and Sarah Martinez in September 2023 while camping at Wahweap RV Park. The parents' bodies were never recovered. Rangers have reported ongoing issues with trespassing at the closed RV park and continued reports of people wandering near the shoreline at night. All attempts to detain or question these individuals have been unsuccessful. Lake Powell water levels continue to drop due to ongoing drought. As of this writing, water levels are at 23% capacity. The reservoir is expected to reach historic lows by summer 2024. Additional searches for Luke Johnson and Emma Martinez are pending. My name is Tyler Scott. This happened last September at Goblin Valley State Park in Utah. I'm writing this down because I need to get it straight in my head, and because I'm starting to wonder if I'm the only one who remembers any of it. We took 2 RVs. Mine and Emma's was a newer model, a 26-footer we'd rented for the trip. David and Rachel had borrowed an older one from Rachel's uncle, one of those boxy white things from the 90s that looked like it belonged in a low-budget horror movie. We'd planned this trip for months. 4 of us, 2 weeks, hitting all the Utah parks we could manage before the weather turned. David was my older brother. Is my older brother. I have to keep correcting myself. We arrived at the campground around 4 in the afternoon. The park itself was still an hour's drive away, but we'd picked this RV site because it was cheap and empty. Mid-September meant the summer crowds were gone, and we had our pick of spots. We chose 2 side-by-side pull-throughs at the far end of the campground, away from the handful of other campers scattered throughout the area. The lady at the office was friendly enough when we checked in. She asked how long we were staying, told us about the amenities, mentioned that cell service was spotty at best. Standard stuff. I remember she had a mug on her desk that said, "I'd rather be camping," which seemed redundant given where she worked. Emma thought it was funny. We spent the first evening setting up. David and I ran the hookups while Rachel and Emma organized the interiors and started dinner. It was easy, comfortable. We'd all known each other for years. David and I grew up together, obviously. Emma and I had been dating for 3 years. Rachel had been with David for about 18 months. We'd done trips like this before, though never one this long. That first night was good. We grilled burgers on the campground's communal fire pit, drank beer, made plans for the next day. David wanted to hike out to the actual Goblin Valley formations first thing in the morning. Rachel wanted to check out the visitor center. Emma and I were flexible. We compromised by deciding to do the formations in the morning, visitor center after lunch. I remember David laughing at something Rachel said. I remember Emma taking a photo of all 4 of us with the sunset behind us. I remember going to sleep around midnight, the desert air finally cooling down, feeling good about the trip. The problem started the next morning. We were supposed to leave at 9. I woke up around 7:30, made coffee, knocked on David and Rachel's RV around 8. No answer. I figured they were sleeping in. Emma and I had breakfast, got our day packs ready, waited. By 9:15, I knocked again. Still nothing. I tried calling David's phone. It rang, but he didn't pick up. I tried Rachel's number, same thing. Emma suggested we just go without them, let them catch up later. But that didn't feel right. David had been the one pushing for the early start. It wasn't like him to flake. I used the spare key Rachel had given us. They'd locked themselves out the first night and wanted us to have a backup. The RV was empty. Not just empty of people, empty of their stuff too. The bed was made. The little dining area was clean. None of their clothes in the closet. No toiletries in the bathroom. Maybe they packed everything up and went ahead without us, Emma suggested, though her voice had that uncertain edge that meant she didn't really believe it either. I checked outside. Their truck was gone too, the one they'd used to tow the RV. We drove out to Goblin Valley. I kept trying David's phone. It went straight to voicemail every time. When we got to the park, I asked the ranger at the entrance station if she'd seen them, described David's truck, gave their names. She checked her log. No one matching that description had come through. The weird thing was, I wasn't that worried yet. Annoyed maybe, confused, but not worried. People don't just vanish. There had to be a rational explanation. Maybe they'd driven into town for supplies. Maybe Rachel wasn't feeling well and they'd gone to find a pharmacy. Maybe their phones died and they'd gone somewhere with better service. Emma and I hiked the main loop anyway. It was beautiful out there, all those rust-colored rock formations sticking up like melted chess pieces. We took photos. We talked about how strange it was that David and Rachel had bailed. We got lunch at the visitor center. We drove back to the campground. Their RV was there when we returned. Same spot, hooked up to power and water like it had never left, but their truck was still gone. I knocked. No answer. I used the spare key again. It was still empty. Exactly as empty as it had been that morning. "This is getting weird," Emma said. She was trying to sound light about it, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. I tried calling David again. This time it didn't even ring, just went straight to that automated message. "The number you have reached is not in service." I tried Rachel's phone, same thing. We went to the campground office. The same woman from the day before was there, but she didn't seem to recognize us. When I asked if she'd seen our friends, described their RV, said they were supposed to be in the spot next to ours. She pulled up her records on the computer. "Says here you only booked 1 spot," she said. I insisted we'd booked 2. I'd paid for 2 spots. She showed me the receipt. 1 spot, 1 RV, 2 people, Tyler Scott and Emma Chen. No mention of David or Rachel. Maybe you made a mistake? She suggested, not unkindly. Made 2 reservations somewhere? People do that sometimes, book the same dates at different parks. I didn't think I'd made a mistake, but she showed me the receipt, and there it was in black and white. And I couldn't argue with black and white. Emma and I went back to our RV. We sat at the little dinette, trying to figure out what was happening. Maybe they never came, Emma said slowly. Maybe something happened at the last minute and they canceled and we just forgot. I remember them being here, I said. I remember last night. I remember David laughing. I remember Rachel making those veggie kebabs. Emma nodded, but she looked uncertain. I remember that too, but maybe what? Maybe we're both just remembering wrong. It's been a long drive, we're tired. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my photos. The one Emma had taken of all 4 of us at sunset the night before should have been there. It wasn't. There were photos from the drive. Photos of Emma at various rest stops. Photos of scenery, but none with David and Rachel in them. Check yours, I told Emma. She did. Same thing. No photos of them. I checked my text messages. The most recent ones from David were from 3 weeks ago, back home. Nothing from the trip. Nothing about the trip. Maybe they never came, Emma said again, and this time her voice was firmer. Maybe we planned for them to come, but then something happened. Work emergency. Rachel got sick and they canceled at the last minute. And we just misremembered because we were expecting them to be here. It made sense. Sort of. People misremember things all the time. Memory is unreliable. I knew that. But I could remember David's voice. I could remember the exact taste of the burgers we'd grilled. I could remember Rachel spilling beer on her shirt and David laughing. I'm going to drive into town, I said. Find somewhere with better cell service, try calling them again. Emma came with me. The nearest town with decent cell service was about 40 minutes away. Small place, gas station, and a diner, and not much else. My phone picked up 3 bars. I called David's number. The recording played. The number you have reached is not in service. I called my mom. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Hey, honey, she said. How's Utah? It's good. Hey, quick question. Is David home? I've been trying to reach him. There was a pause. David? Who's David? My stomach dropped. David, your son, my brother. Another pause, longer this time. Then, Tyler, are you feeling okay? Did something happen? Mom, I'm talking about David, your oldest son. Sweetheart, you're my only son. Are you sure you're all right? Have you been drinking? I hung up, my hands were shaking. Emma was watching me from the passenger seat. What did she say? She doesn't remember David. Tyler. She doesn't remember him, her own son. She doesn't remember him. Maybe you said the wrong name. Maybe. I know my own brother's fucking name, Emma. She flinched. I never raised my voice at her. I took a breath, tried to calm down. I'm sorry, I said. I'm sorry, this is insane. Let me try calling Rachel's parents, Emma said quietly. She did. I watched her face as she talked, watched it go from confused to disturbed to something that looked like fear. She hung up. They don't have a daughter named Rachel. They only have 2 sons. We sat in the truck in that tiny town's parking lot for a long time, neither of us saying anything. Finally, Emma spoke. What if they were never real? What do you mean? What if David and Rachel never existed? What if we just, I don't know, imagined them somehow? I have 34 years of memories with David, Emma. I didn't imagine him. Then where is he? Where are they? Why doesn't anyone remember them? I didn't have an answer. We drove back to the campground as the sun was setting. The RV next to ours, the one David and Rachel should have been in, was still there, still empty, still hooked up to power and water. That night, Emma fell asleep easily. I couldn't. I lay there in the dark, trying to hold on to my memories of David, trying to prove to myself that he was real. I remembered when he taught me to ride a bike. I was 7, he was 11. He ran alongside me in our driveway until I got my balance, then let go. I remembered the feeling of panic when I realized he wasn't holding on anymore, then the rush of exhilaration when I stayed upright. I remembered the time in high school when I got suspended for fighting. Mom was furious. Dad didn't talk to me for a week, but David snuck into my room that night and told me he was proud of me for standing up to that kid who'd been bullying the freshman. He said I did the right thing, even if I got in trouble for it. I remembered his wedding to Carly. Wait. No. Carly was his college girlfriend. They broke up junior year. Rachel. He was with Rachel, but I couldn't remember their wedding. Had they gotten married? I thought they had. I could almost see it. A small ceremony, outdoor venue, Rachel in a simple white dress. But the harder I tried to picture it, the fuzzier it got. I remembered David calling me when Dad died. 2 years ago, February. Dad had a heart attack at work. Died before the ambulance arrived. David called me. I was at work. I remembered sitting in my car in the parking lot crying so hard I couldn't catch my breath. David talked to me the whole time. Talked until I could breathe again. Except I also remembered that call differently. Remembered being alone when I found out. Remembered Emma calling me because Mom had called her first, couldn't reach me. Remembered Emma being the one to talk me through it. Both memories felt real. But they couldn't both be real. I got up, careful not to wake Emma. Went outside. The RV next to ours sat in the darkness. I walked over to it. Tried the door. It was unlocked. Inside, I turned on the overhead light. The RV was exactly as it had been that morning. Clean, empty, no personal belongings. But then I noticed something. On the small kitchen counter, there was a coffee mug. Not a paper cup, not a disposable thing. A real mug. It had a logo on it. Some brewery I didn't recognize. It was half full. Cold, but not dried out. Like someone had poured it earlier today and left it. I picked it up. Looked inside. Coffee with a little bit of cream, the way Rachel took hers. Except Rachel didn't exist. According to everyone else, Rachel had never existed. I set the mug down and backed out of the RV. Stood in the cool night air trying to make sense of what was happening. A voice spoke from behind me. "Can't sleep either?" I spun around. There was a man standing by one of the other RVs, maybe 50 feet away. Older guy, maybe 60, with a thick beard and a flannel shirt. Yeah, I said. Just restless, I guess. Happens to me all the time out here, he said, walking closer. Something about the desert makes it hard to settle your mind. Have you been here long? I asked. Got here this afternoon. You? Yesterday. He nodded, looked at the empty RV next to ours. That one yours too? No, friends were supposed to be here, but they didn't show up. That's a shame. It's nice out here, though quiet. Yeah. He started to walk away, then paused. Hey, you want some advice? Sure. Don't go into town, especially not at night. People around here, they don't like outsiders much. The people in town seemed fine earlier. He gave me a look I couldn't quite read. If you say so. Then he went back to his RV and closed the door. I stood there for a while longer, then went back to bed. Emma was still asleep. I lay next to her, staring at the ceiling. I must have dozed off eventually because I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. Emma was already up, making coffee. Morning, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Morning. I've been thinking, she said, about yesterday, about everything. Yeah? I think we should go home. Cut the trip short. It's not fun anymore. I don't know what's happening, but I think we should just leave. I wanted to argue, wanted to say we needed to figure out what happened to David and Rachel, but the thing was, I was starting to doubt myself. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe they had never come. Maybe I was having some kind of breakdown. Okay, I said. Let's pack up. We spent the morning getting the RV ready to leave. Around 11, the campground lady came by on a golf cart doing her rounds. Heading out? She asked. Yeah, Emma said, cutting the trip short. That's too bad. Everything okay? Fine, I said. Just ready to get home. She nodded. Well, if you want, there's no charge for breaking your reservation early. We're pretty empty this time of year anyway. Thanks. She started to drive away, then stopped, turned back. Hey, can I ask you something? Sure. That RV next to yours, the white one, that yours? No, I said. That belongs to... I stopped. Who did it belong to? I tried to picture their faces, tried to remember their names. Belongs to some friends, I finished, but the word felt hollow. Wrong. Weird, she said. It's been sitting there empty since I got here this morning. No one's checked in for that spot. I thought maybe you'd brought 2 vehicles. No, Emma said quickly. Just ours. The lady shrugged. Guess someone abandoned it then. Happens sometimes. We'll have it towed if no one claims it. She drove off. I looked at Emma. You remember them, right? The people who were supposed to be in that RV? She hesitated. I remember us talking about people joining us. Planning with people. But I can't. I can't picture their faces anymore. Can you? I tried. Tried so hard to see David's face. And I could, sort of. But it was like looking at an old photograph that's been in the sun too long. Faded. Indistinct. I could almost see him, but not quite. No, I admitted. I can't. We finished packing. As we were doing a final walk around, I noticed something in the dirt between our RV and the empty one. Footprints, 4 sets, 2 going to our RV, 2 going to the other one, fresh footprints, from this morning. I crouched down, studying them. 2 sets were mine and Emma's. I recognized our shoes. The other 2? They were different. Larger boots, smaller sneakers. Emma, I said, come look at this. She came over, stared at the footprints. Those aren't ours, I said. Maybe they're old, from before. They're fresh. You can tell by how sharp the edges are. She crouched next to me. Tyler, there's no one else here. There hasn't been anyone else here. Then whose footprints are these? She didn't answer, just stood up and walked back to our RV. I stayed there staring at those footprints. 4 sets, 4 people. I knew there had been 4 people. I knew it. But I couldn't remember who the other 2 were. We pulled out of the campground around noon. As we passed the office, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The white RV was still there, sitting in its spot, hooked up to power and water, waiting for people who would never return, or maybe for people who had never existed in the first place. The drive home took 2 days. Emma didn't want to talk much. When she did, she avoided mentioning the trip, the campground, anything that had happened. We talked about work, about what we'd do when we got back, about mundane things. I wanted to push, wanted to make her remember. But every time I opened my mouth to bring it up, the words died in my throat. Because what was I going to say? That my brother, who I could no longer clearly picture, had vanished? That someone named Rachel, who I couldn't remember meeting, had disappeared? The memories were slipping away like water through my fingers. The harder I tried to hold on, the faster they drained. By the time we got home, I could barely remember why we'd gone to Utah in the first place. Something about a trip, something about visiting parks, but the details were fuzzy. Emma went back to work the next day. I took a few extra days, told my boss I needed to decompress from the vacation. Instead, I spent those days trying to reconstruct what had happened. I went through every photo on my phone, every text message, every email, looking for proof. Proof of what? I wasn't entirely sure anymore. But proof of something. There was nothing. No trace of anyone else being on that trip with us. No mention of anyone else in any of my digital records. I called my mom, asked her if she remembered me having a brother. Tyler, we've been through this, she said, her voice tight with concern. You're my only child, are you? Are you seeing someone about this? A therapist, maybe? No, I'm fine. Never mind. Honey, I'm worried about you. I'm fine, Mom, really. But I wasn't fine. I drove to my childhood home. Mom had moved to a condo a year after Dad died, couldn't stand living in the house alone. The new owners were happy to let me take some photos of the outside, probably thought I was being nostalgic. I looked at the upstairs windows. 2 bedrooms up there. Mine and whose? There should have been another bedroom. I remembered 2 kids' bedrooms. I remembered. But I couldn't remember who the second bedroom belonged to. I started keeping a journal, writing down everything I could remember before it faded completely. But when I read back what I'd written, it didn't make sense. I'd written about a person, but I hadn't written their name. Just blank spaces where a name should be. I'd written about memories, but they were incomplete, full of holes. Emma caught me writing one night, sat down across from me at the kitchen table. "Tyler," she said quietly, "you need to let this go." "Let what go?" "Whatever happened in Utah, you need to let it go. It's eating you alive." Something happened there, Emma. Something wrong. And everyone just forgot. Maybe nothing happened. Maybe we just went on a trip and came home and that's it. Then why do I have these memories? Why do I remember? Remember what? Say it. What do you remember? I opened my mouth, closed it. I didn't know what I remembered. Not clearly. Not anymore. "I thought so," Emma said, but there was no triumph in her voice. Just sadness. "You're chasing something that was never there." That night, I dreamed about the empty RV. I was inside it, searching for something. I didn't know what. I opened drawers and cabinets, all empty. Looked under the bed, in the bathroom, in every corner, empty, empty, empty. Then I heard a voice, familiar but distant. It was calling my name, not from outside the RV, from inside it, like it was coming from the walls themselves. "Tyler." I spun around. No one there. "Tyler, please." I recognized that voice. I knew I did. It was someone I cared about, someone important, but I couldn't place it, couldn't attach a face or a name to it. "Tyler, why don't you remember?" I woke up gasping. Emma stirred next to me but didn't wake. I got up, went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, for just a second, just the briefest second, there was someone standing behind me. In the reflection. Tall, male, familiar, then gone. I turned around. No one there. I went back to bed, lay awake until morning. 3 weeks after we got back, Emma and I broke up. She said she loved me but couldn't watch me destroy myself. She said I needed help, professional help. She said when I was ready to move on, to let go of whatever delusion I was clinging to, maybe we could talk again. I didn't argue. Maybe she was right. I moved into a smaller apartment, started seeing a therapist, told her about the trip, about the memories that didn't make sense, about feeling like someone, was missing from my life. She diagnosed me with depression, prescribed medication, said it was normal to feel lost sometimes, to feel like there should be more to life than there is, said the medication would help. I took it. The memories faded more. Life became easier, more manageable. But sometimes late at night I still feel it. That absence, that hole where something used to be. I'll be doing something mundane, making dinner, watching TV, reading a book, and I'll suddenly feel like I should be sharing this moment with someone. Not Emma, someone else, someone who knew me longer, someone who had been there for important moments in my life, someone who doesn't exist. Last week I got a package in the mail, no return address. Inside was a coffee mug. It had a brewery logo on it, one I didn't recognize. There was a note with it. Just 4 words, written in handwriting I almost recognized. Remember. Please remember. I put the mug in my kitchen cabinet. Sometimes I take it out, hold it, try to remember, but there's nothing to remember. The therapist says so. Emma said so. My mom says so. Except sometimes when I hold that mug, I hear a voice. Distant. Fading. Like it's calling from very far away, or from somewhere that doesn't quite exist anymore. Tyler. Just my name. Over and over. Tyler. Like someone is trying very, very hard to remind me they're real. I should throw the mug away. The therapist would tell me to. It's not healthy to fixate on delusions. It's not healthy to chase ghosts. But I can't. Because somewhere, in a part of my brain that medication can't reach, I know something true. Someone was there. Someone was real. Someone was important to me. And somehow, some way, I let them be forgotten. The RV is still there, you know. I checked, drove back to Goblin Valley last month. Told myself I was going for a hike to face my fears, to prove to myself there was nothing supernatural about that place. Just a campground, just a coincidence, just my mind playing tricks. But when I got there and drove to the back section where we'd stayed, that white RV was still in the same spot, still hooked up to power and water, still empty, still waiting. The campground lady, a different one this time, younger, told me it had been sitting there for months. No one knew who owned it. No registration, no paperwork. But every time they tried to have it towed, something happened. The tow truck would break down. The driver would forget why he was there. Once, the whole section of the campground lost power for 3 days when they tried to disconnect it. So they left it, said it was easier that way. I walked up to it. The door was unlocked, just like before. I stepped inside. It smelled like someone had been there recently. Not the musty smell of abandonment, but fresh. Like someone had made coffee that morning. On the counter was a mug. Half full, still warm. I picked it up, looked at the logo. Same one as the mug that had been mailed to me. I set it down carefully and backed out of the RV. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The RV shrank in the distance, but I swear, I saw someone standing next to it. Tall figure, male, waving, or maybe trying to get my attention, or maybe begging me to remember. I don't go back anymore. I don't drive past that campground. I don't think about Utah or empty RVs or missing memories. But sometimes when I'm falling asleep, I hear that voice again. Tyler. And I wonder, what happens to people when everyone forgets they existed? Do they disappear completely? Do they fade into nothing? Or do they get stuck somewhere in between, trying desperately to remind the world they were real? I don't know. I can't know. All I know is that somewhere there's an empty RV in Utah, and sometimes when no one's looking, someone makes coffee there, someone who's waiting for me to remember, someone whose name I can almost recall. It starts with a D, I think, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm making that up too. Maybe none of this is real. Maybe I'm the one who doesn't exist. That's what scares me most. Not that I forgot someone important, but that maybe they forgot me first. And everything I think I remember, my whole life, my history, all of it, is just the fading echo of someone who was already forgotten. The therapist says that's paranoid thinking. The medication is supposed to help with that. But the medication can't explain the mug, can't explain the RV, can't explain the voice I still hear. Can't explain why, sometimes when I look in the mirror, I see 2 reflections instead of 1. One is me. I'm sure of that. The other, I can almost recognize, almost remember. But by the time I turn around, it's gone. They're always gone. And soon I think I will be too. My name is Logan Parker. I woke up with dirt under my nails and no memory of how it got there. It was our 3rd night at Lone Rock Beach, Lake Powell, Utah. August 2023. My boyfriend Marcus and I had driven the RV down from Salt Lake City for a week-long camping trip. We'd been together 2 years and things had been tense lately. He worked too much, I complained too much. The trip was supposed to fix things. The RV was a rental, nothing fancy. 24 feet kitchen area, tiny bathroom, bed over the cab. We'd parked it right on the beach with about 15 other RVs spread out along the shoreline. During the day, you could see the massive orange and red rock formations rising from the water. At night, it got dark in a way that city people don't understand. No streetlights, no glow from buildings, just stars and the occasional headlamp from someone walking to the bathroom. I remember going to bed around 11. Marcus had been drinking beer since sunset, getting louder with each one. Not mean, just loud, laughing too hard at things that weren't funny. I'd gone to bed first, annoyed, leaving him sitting outside in one of our camp chairs. When I woke up, it was still dark. I checked my phone. 6:47 a.m. The sun would be up soon. My mouth was dry and my head felt stuffed with cotton. I got up to get water from the kitchen, and that's when I saw my hands. Dirt, under every fingernail, packed in deep like I'd been digging with my bare hands. I stood there in my underwear and tank top, staring at my fingers under the small LED light above the sink. The dirt was reddish, the same color as the rocks outside. I turned on the faucet and scrubbed at my nails, watching the water run brown into the sink. "Marcus?" I called out. No answer. I looked toward the bed over the cab. He wasn't there. The sheets were thrown back on his side. I hadn't noticed when I woke up. "Marcus." I pulled on shorts and opened the RV door. The morning air was cool, the sky turning gray-blue. Our 2 camp chairs sat exactly where we'd left them. His beer bottles were lined up on the ground beside his chair, 6 of them, all empty. I walked around the RV, calling his name. Nothing. The beach was silent. Most of the other campers were still asleep in their RVs and tents. I could see the lake flat and glassy, stretching out toward Lone Rock itself, a massive sandstone butte rising from the water about a mile offshore. I checked my phone again. No messages. I tried calling him. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. "Hey, it's me, where are you?" I went back inside and looked around. His wallet was on the counter. His shoes were by the door, but his phone wasn't charging where we usually plugged it in overnight. I washed my hands again, scrubbing harder this time. The dirt had gotten under my nails in a way that suggested hours of work, not just touching something dirty. My fingertips were sore when I pressed on them. I couldn't remember anything after going to bed. Nothing. Just sleep, then waking up. I made coffee and sat outside, watching the sun come up. By 8 o'clock I was worried. By 9 I was calling him every 10 minutes. By 10 I walked down to the bathroom facilities to see if he'd gone there and gotten lost or sick. Nothing. A woman in her 60s, camping 3 RVs down from us, was walking back from the bathroom. She smiled at me. "Morning," she said. "Beautiful day. Have you seen my boyfriend? Tall guy, brown hair, beard?" "I don't think so. When did you last see him?" "Last night, around 11. She shook her head. "I've been up since 6. Haven't seen anyone." "Okay, thanks." I walked back to our RV and stood there feeling stupid and scared at the same time. People don't just vanish. There had to be an explanation. I called the local ranger station. A man answered, sounding bored. "Glen Canyon National Recreation Area, this is Ranger Mitchell." "Hi, I'm camping at Lone Rock Beach and my boyfriend is missing." "Missing? Since when?" "Last night. I went to bed around 11 and when I woke up this morning he was gone." "Has he done this before? Gone for a walk, maybe?" "No, and his wallet and shoes are still here." There was a pause. "Okay, I can come by and take a report. What's your campsite number?" I looked around. I hadn't paid attention to the numbered posts. "I'm not sure. We're in a white RV parked on the beach. There's a blue Honda CR-V next to us. I'll find you. Give me about 20 minutes." Ranger Mitchell showed up 30 minutes later in a dusty white truck with the Park Service logo on the door. He was younger than he'd sounded on the phone, maybe early 30s, with sunglasses pushed up on his head and a clipboard in his hand. I told him everything. Marcus, the beer, going to bed at 11, waking up at 6:47, the dirt under my nails. He wrote it all down, not reacting to anything. When I finished, he looked up. "And you didn't hear anything during the night? No sounds? No one moving around?" "No, I was asleep." "Do you remember anything unusual? Dreams, maybe? No, nothing. He tapped his pen against the clipboard. The dirt under your nails. You said you don't know how it got there? No. Could you have been sleepwalking? I'd never sleepwalked in my life, but I couldn't say it was impossible. I don't think so. Sometimes people do things when they're asleep and don't remember, especially in unfamiliar places. But where's Marcus? I don't know. But let's start with some basics. I'll check with the other campers, see if anyone saw or heard anything. I'll also call it in, get some more people looking. In the meantime, you should stay here in case he comes back. Okay. He handed me a card with his number on it. Call me if you think of anything else or if he shows up. After he left, I sat in the RV with the door open, watching people go about their day. Kids ran around in the sand. Someone launched a kayak. A group set up a canopy tent and started unloading coolers. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. How's the trip? I didn't know how to answer, so I didn't. At noon, I made a sandwich but couldn't eat it. At 1, I walked down to the water and stood there looking out at Lone Rock. The formation was impressive up close, probably 400 feet tall, its layered sandstone glowing in the sun. People said you could climb it, that there was a trail, but it looked impossible to me. I walked back to the RV. As I approached, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Footprints in the sand near our camp. Bare footprints. They led from our RV toward the water, then stopped about 20 feet away, as if whoever made them had just disappeared. I followed them, bending down to look closer. They were large, Marcus's size. The edges were sharp, not smoothed by wind, which meant they were recent, but they just ended. No return prints. No indication of where the person had gone next. I took a photo with my phone, not sure why. Then I walked back to the RV and sat down, trying to make sense of it. Ranger Mitchell called at 3. I've talked to everyone camping within a quarter mile of you. No one saw or heard anything unusual last night. I've also got 2 other rangers searching the area on foot and by boat. We'll keep looking until sundown. Thank you. One more thing. I checked the hospital and page. No one matching your boyfriend's description has been admitted. That should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Okay. Try to stay calm. Most missing persons cases resolve within 24 hours. After he hung up, I sat there thinking about the word, most. The sun moved across the sky. Other campers cooked dinner. I could smell charcoal and grilled meat. My stomach was a knot. At 7:30 p.m., I heard footsteps outside. I jumped up and threw open the door. Marcus was standing there, wearing the same clothes from the night before. He looked tired, his t-shirt dirty, but otherwise normal. Where the hell have you been? I said. He blinked at me, confused. What do you mean? You've been gone all day since last night. I called the rangers. Everyone's been looking for you. I went for a walk. A walk? For almost 24 hours? He shook his head, like I was the one not making sense. No. I went for a walk this morning. Maybe an hour ago. Marcus, it's 7:30 at night. You left last night. He stared at me, then looked around at the other campsites, at the position of the sun. That's not right. Where were you? I went for a walk, down the beach. For a whole day? I don't. He rubbed his face with both hands. I don't know. I don't remember. I pulled him inside the RV and made him sit down. His hands were dirty, I noticed. Dirt under his nails, just like mine had been. You don't remember anything. I remember waking up. You were asleep. I felt restless, so I went outside. I walked down toward the rock and then... I'm here. That was last night, Marcus. Almost 24 hours ago. He looked at his hands, turning them over. I don't understand. I called Ranger Mitchell and told him Marcus was back. He said he'd come by in the morning to talk to him to make sure he was okay. When I hung up, Marcus was sitting in the same position, staring at his hands. Do you feel okay? I asked. Yeah, just tired. Are you hurt anywhere? No. I made him drink water and eat some crackers. He moved slowly, mechanically, like someone recovering from surgery. When I asked him questions, where exactly did you walk? Did you see anyone? Do you remember anything at all? He just shook his head. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I don't know what happened. We went to bed early. Marcus fell asleep immediately, his breathing deep and steady. I lay there beside him, staring at the ceiling of the RV, listening to the quiet sounds of the campground settling in for the night. I couldn't stop thinking about the footprints that ended, about the dirt under my nails, about the fact that Marcus had lost an entire day and couldn't remember any of it. At some point, I fell asleep. I woke up digging. My hands were in the sand, scooping, pulling, pushing. I was outside the RV, kneeling on the beach in my underwear and tank top. The air was cold. My fingers burned. I stopped, pulling my hands back, looking at them in the moonlight. They were covered in sand and dirt, my nails packed full again. What the fuck? I whispered. I looked around. No one was nearby. The other RVs were dark and quiet. I checked my phone. 3:17 a.m. I looked down at the hole I'd made. It wasn't deep, maybe 6 inches, but it was wide, about 2 feet across. There was nothing in it, just sand and more sand. I stood up, brushing off my knees, and looked toward our RV. The door was open. I'd left it open when I walked out here, or sleepwalked, or whatever the hell I'd been doing. I filled in the hole with my foot, then went back inside. Marcus was still asleep, hadn't moved. I washed my hands in the sink, scrubbing hard, then climbed back into bed. I didn't sleep again. In the morning, I told Marcus what happened. He listened without interrupting, his face blank. Maybe we should leave, he said. Maybe. But we didn't. I don't know why. Part of me wanted to stay, to figure out what was happening. Part of me was afraid that leaving wouldn't change anything, that whatever was wrong with us would follow. Ranger Mitchell came by at 9. He talked to Marcus for 20 minutes, asking the same questions I'd asked. Marcus gave the same answers. He didn't remember. He felt fine now. He was sorry for causing trouble. The ranger looked skeptical but didn't push. Before he left, he pulled me aside. Keep an eye on him, he said. If anything else happens, call me right away. Okay. And you might want to think about cutting the trip short. Sometimes places affect people in strange ways. After he left, Marcus and I sat outside in our camp chairs, not talking. The day was hot, the lake crowded with boats. Everything looked normal, safe. But I kept thinking about the ranger's words. Sometimes places affect people in strange ways. Marcus, I said, what do you remember about before? Before what? Before you went missing. The night before we came here, the drive down, all of it. He thought about it. I remember packing. I remember driving. I remember setting up camp, having a few beers. That's it? Yeah, why? Just checking. But something in his answer bothered me. The way he'd said it, like he was reciting lines instead of remembering. I tried to push the feeling away. That afternoon, I took a walk by myself, following the shoreline away from our campsite. I needed to clear my head. The sun was brutal and I hadn't brought enough water, but I kept walking anyway. I passed other campers, families mostly, and nodded hello. Everyone seemed relaxed, happy. No one else was losing time or waking up with their hands buried in the sand. About a mile from our RV, I found another set of footprints, bare feet, heading away from the water toward a cluster of rocks and scrub brush. I followed them without thinking, my own prints next to the older ones in the sand. The tracks led to a small clearing behind the rocks, and there, in the center, was another hole. This one was deeper than mine had been, maybe 2 feet down, and wider. The sand around it was disturbed, like someone had been digging frantically. I knelt down and looked inside. There was nothing there, just sand. But as I stared, I noticed something. A smell. Faint, but distinct. Rot. Decay. Like something dead. I stood up quickly and backed away. The smell followed me, or maybe it was just in my head. I turned and walked back to the beach, then ran. When I got back to the RV, Marcus was gone again. "No," I said out loud. "No, no, no." I checked inside. His wallet was there, his shoes, his phone, plugged in and charging. I called his phone anyway. It rang from inside the RV. I sat down in one of the camp chairs and put my head in my hands. This couldn't be happening. Not again. I waited an hour, then 2. At 6:30 p.m., just as I was about to call Ranger Mitchell, Marcus came walking up from the water. He looked the same as before, dirty, tired, confused. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I went for a swim." "In your clothes?" He looked down at himself, as if just noticing. "I guess so." "Marcus, you were gone for hours." "It wasn't hours." "Yes, it was. It's almost 7. He pulled out his phone. No, wait, his phone was inside charging. But he pulled out a phone anyway from his pocket and looked at it. "It's 4:15, he said, showing me the screen. I looked at my own phone. 6:28 p.m. "Your phone is wrong," I said. "No, it's not." We stood there staring at each other, both of our phones in our hands showing different times. "What the fuck is going on?" I said. Marcus put his phone away. "I don't know." That night I duct taped the RV door shut from the inside and wedged a chair under the handle. Marcus watched me do it without comment. Then I took both our phones and put them in a drawer. "We're not sleepwalking tonight," I said. "We're not going anywhere." "Okay." We lay in bed, not touching. I stayed awake as long as I could, listening to every sound. The wind. The distant hum of a generator. Voices from another campsite. Eventually I slept. I woke up outside. It was still dark, probably early morning. I was standing at the edge of the water, waves lapping at my feet. My hands were dirty again, covered in sand that was wet and cold. I spun around looking for the RV. I could see it in the distance, maybe 100 yards away. The door was still closed, still taped shut. I started walking back, my mind racing. How did I get out? The door was taped. The chair was there. I'd made sure. When I reached the RV, I walked around it slowly. The door was still sealed. The tape was intact. The chair was still wedged under the handle from inside, but I was outside. I stood there for a long time, trying to understand. Then I noticed the RV was rocking slightly, like someone was moving around inside. I knocked on the door. "Marcus?" No answer. Marcus opened the door. Nothing. I peeled away the duct tape and pulled the door open. The chair fell away. Inside, Marcus was sitting on the floor by the bed, his back against the wall. He was awake, his eyes open, but he didn't look at me. "Marcus?" He didn't respond. I climbed inside and knelt in front of him. "Marcus, what's wrong?" His eyes moved to meet mine. They were different. Still brown, still Marcus's eyes, but there was something else in them now, something that wasn't him. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "What are you talking about?" "This place. You shouldn't have come." "Marcus, you're scaring me." He smiled, not a happy smile, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I know." I backed away from him, my heart hammering. "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing. I'm fine." He stood up, moving smoothly, and walked past me to the door. "I'm going for a walk." "No, you're not." He turned and looked at me. That same wrong smile. "I'll be back." And he left. I stood there, shaking, trying to decide what to do. Call the ranger, follow him, lock myself in the RV. I grabbed my phone from the drawer and called Ranger Mitchell. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I looked at the time on my phone. 11:34 a.m. That couldn't be right. It had been dark outside. Early morning. I opened the door and looked out. The sun was high in the sky. Midday. People were everywhere, swimming, playing, cooking lunch. I checked my phone again. 11:34 a.m. I'd lost hours. Again. I sat down on the RV steps and tried to breathe. My hands were still dirty. I looked at my nails, at the sand packed beneath them, and started to cry. Marcus came back at sunset. I was sitting in the same spot, watching the sky turn orange and pink over the lake. He sat down in one of the camp chairs and looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "I don't know. Everything." He sounded like himself again. Not the flat, emotionless voice from this morning. Just Marcus. "We need to leave," I said. "Right now." "Okay." We packed up the RV in silence. It took an hour to get everything put away, to disconnect the water and power. Other campers watched us, probably wondering why we were leaving so late in the day. I got in the driver's seat. Marcus got in the passenger seat. I started the engine and pulled out onto the dirt road that led away from the beach. We drove for 10 minutes, following the GPS toward the main road. The landscape was barren here, just sand and rock and scattered brush. No other vehicles, no buildings. Then I saw it. Our RV, parked on the beach, exactly where we'd been. I stopped the RV and stared. "What?" Marcus asked. "Look." He looked out the windshield, then turned to look at me. "What am I looking at?" "Our RV, it's still there. We're in our RV." "No, look, over there, on the beach." He looked again, squinting. "I don't see anything." But I could see it clearly. Our white RV with the rental company logo. Our 2 camp chairs, our stuff. I put the RV in drive and kept going. I didn't look back. We drove for another 10 minutes. The GPS said we were heading north toward the main highway, but the landscape looked the same. Sand, rock, brush. Then I saw the sign, Lone Rock Beach, next right. I'd already passed that sign. 15 minutes ago. I kept driving. 10 minutes later, the same sign. "Marcus," I said, "do you see that sign?" "What sign?" "The one that says Lone Rock Beach." "No." I pulled over and stopped the RV. I got out and stood there looking around. The sun was setting fast now, the sky turning dark purple. In the distance I could see Lone Rock, the massive formation rising from the water, but we'd been driving away from it. We should have been farther away by now. Marcus got out of the passenger side. "What's wrong?" "We're not leaving. We're still here." "What do you mean?" "We keep ending up at the same place, the same sign. We're not actually going anywhere." He walked around the front of the RV and stood next to me. For a moment he looked at me like he used to, with concern and care. Then his expression changed, flattening into that wrong smile again. "I told you," he said. "You shouldn't have come here." I ran. I don't remember deciding to run. I just did. Away from Marcus, away from the RV, into the desert. My feet slipped in the sand and I fell, got up, kept running. Behind me I heard Marcus call my name, not yelling, just calling, calm and steady. "Logan, come back." I didn't stop. I ran until I couldn't breathe, until my legs gave out. I collapsed behind a large rock and sat there, gasping, my hands pressed against the stone. It was full dark now, no moon, just stars. I could hear footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer. "Logan," Marcus called. "I'm not going to hurt you." I didn't believe him. The footsteps stopped. I held my breath. "You did this to yourself," he said. His voice was close, maybe on the other side of the rock. "You started digging. You woke it up." I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. "It wants you to dig more. It wants you to find it." I closed my eyes, tears running down my face. "And you will. You know you will. You won't be able to stop." The footsteps moved away. I stayed there for a long time, not moving, not making a sound. Eventually, I stood up and looked around the rock. I couldn't see Marcus. I couldn't see the RV. I couldn't see anything except sand and rock and darkness. I walked back the way I thought I'd come, but everything looked the same. After 20 minutes, I still hadn't found the RV. I pulled out my phone. No signal, but I had a flashlight app. I turned it on and kept walking. I found a hole. It was deep, maybe 4 feet, and wide enough for a person to fit inside. The edges were rough, clearly dug by hand. I pointed my phone's light into it and saw something at the bottom. A hand. I stumbled backward, almost dropping my phone. The hand was pale, the fingers curled. It wasn't moving. I forced myself to look again, pointing the light directly at it. It was my hand, my fingers, my nails packed with dirt. I looked down at my own hands. They were still there, still attached to my arms, but in the hole, there was another hand. Mine. I ran again. This time I found the RV quickly, as if it had moved closer while I wasn't looking. Marcus was sitting in one of the camp chairs, drinking a beer. When he saw me, he stood up. "There you are," he said, smiling. I was worried. I backed away from him. "Stay away from me." "Logan, come on. It's just me." "You're not Marcus." "Of course I am." "No, you're not." He took a step toward me. I took a step back. "What did you see out there?" he asked. "Nothing." "You're lying. You found one, didn't you? One of the holes." I didn't answer. "They're everywhere," he said, "all around the lake. People dig them. They don't know why. They just do. And then they find things, parts of themselves, things they've lost, things they never knew they were missing. I want to leave. You can't. None of us can. Once you start digging, you have to finish. I don't understand. You will." He walked past me to the RV and went inside. I stood there alone, listening to the sound of the lake. I knew he was right. I could feel it in my bones, in the ache of my hands, in the sand still packed under my nails. Something inside me wanted to dig, needed to dig. I looked down at the beach, at the sand beneath my feet, and I started. I dug with my bare hands, pulling up sand, pushing it aside. My fingernails broke. My hands bled. But I kept digging. I don't know how long I worked. Hours, maybe. The sky lightened. The sun came up. Other campers emerged from their RVs and tents. No one said anything to me. They just watched as I dug. When I reached 5 feet down, I found it. Not a body, not bones. Something else. A mirror. It was oval-shaped, old, the glass dark and warped. I pulled it out of the sand and held it up. My reflection stared back at me, but it was wrong. The eyes were too dark, the smile too wide, and there was dirt smeared across the face, like I'd been buried. I dropped the mirror and scrambled out of the hole. My legs barely held me. Marcus was standing nearby, watching. He nodded, like I'd done something right. "Good," he said. "Now you understand." "Understand what?" "You're already gone. You've been gone since the first night. What's standing here now is just what's left." I looked down at my hands. The dirt was under my nails again, but this time it didn't wash off. It was part of me. I looked at the RV, at the other campers going about their morning routines. Everything looked normal, but I knew it wasn't. I knew I couldn't leave. I knew I would dig again tonight, and the night after that, and the night after that, until there was nothing left to find. My name is Logan Parker. I'm still at Lone Rock Beach, Lake Powell, Utah. It's been 3 weeks since I first woke up with dirt under my nails. Marcus is here too, though I don't know if he's really Marcus anymore. Maybe he never was. Every night I dig. Every morning I find something. Last night it was teeth, small and white, still attached to a piece of jawbone. They were mine. I'm still here. I'll always be here. If you come to Lone Rock Beach, you'll probably see me. I'll be the woman sitting by a white RV staring at the water. My hands will be dirty. Don't talk to me, don't ask if I need help. And whatever you do, don't start digging. You won't be able to stop.